Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Sean Renzo Head, licensed shakuhachi teacher, composer, and lecturer. Today we're going to be going through the Kyotaku Denki, basically a reading of it. And the Kyotaku Denki was one of the fabricated documents by the Komuso to gain special privileges under the Tokugawa shogunate. So I hope you guys enjoy this reading and I hope it helps you in your shakuhachi studies. Kyotaku Denki, circa 1640. Text of Kyotaku Denki Kokuji-kai. Kyōre, false bell. A musical piece was originally named Kyotaku, false bell, because it imitated the sound of a taku, a Chinese handbell with a clapper. Consequently, the instrument, the bamboo flute on which the piece was played, was called a false bell, and so was the piece. Since the taku and the dei, ling in Chinese, are similar, in latter ages people mistook the latter for the former and coined the name kyōre, false bell. Then it is not a great mistake to assume that just because the instrument is usually called shakuhachi, kyōre is nothing but the name of a piece. Fuke-zenji, in Chinese Puhua, Changshi, was a Zen Buddhist priest of great learning in the Tang dynasty. He lived in Chen province and was pleased with his uninhibited Zen spirit. Ringing a taku, he would go to town and say to passerbys, Myōtō da, Antō da, Shihō hachimen rai, senpū da, koku renga da. If attacked in the light, I will strike back in the light. If attacked in the dark, I will strike in the dark. If attacked from all quarters, I will strike as a whirlwind does. If attacked from the empty sky, I will thrash with a flail. One day, a man named Choukaku, Changpo in Chinese, of Honan province, heard these words and revered the priest Fuke for his great virtue. He appealed to the priest for permission to follow him, but the priest did not accept him. Haku had previously had a taste for playing pipes. Having listened to the sound of the priest's bell, he at once made a bamboo flute and imitated the sound. Thereafter, he played the sound untiringly on the flute and never played other pieces. Since he made the sound of the bell on the flute, he named the flute Kyotaku. This tradition was handed down in his family for 16 generations, from Choukaku to Chokin, his son, and to Chohan, his grandson, and Chouken, the son of Chohan, had the synonym Tairyo, then Chōryo, Chōriku, Chōchu, Chōgen, Chōshi, Chōan, Chōtan, Chōren, Chōsan, Chōshō, whose synonyms was Shiso, Chōyu, the 15th generation, and Chōsan, the 16th generation. The descendant name San, Chosan, had already mastered the tradition in his 30s. Since he was a devout believer in Buddhism by nature, he went to the prefecture of Joshu to study Zen Buddhism with a priest at the temple Gokukuji in Japanese of Reitō. At the same time, Gakushin, a Japanese Buddhist priest, was also staying there to study Zen. Being companions in their studies, Gakushin and San had much in common and became good friends. One day, during a quiet talk, the conversation turned to the story of the Kyotaku tradition, which had been originated by San's ancestors and transmitted down to his time. San then tuned the instrument and played it. The strains from the flute were captivating. Gakushin was impressed by the sound and expressed great admiration, saying excitingly, "Wonderful, exquisite. From the various flutes of the world, I have never heard such a pure sound or such beautiful music. This is music to be admired and cherished. I beg you to teach me one piece so that I might introduce this exquisite sound to Japan and pass it on to posterity." Then San performed on the flute again for Gakushin and let him learn the music. Gakushin studied the art of Kyotaku. As the days passed, he went to the heart of Zen philosophy and attained proficiency in the Kyotaku, Finally, he took leave of San to return to Japan. Gakushin left for Mingchou, where he unmoored his ship. It was in the second year of Pao Yu, in the reign of the Emperor Li Sung of the southern Sung dynasty, that he returned to Japan, where it was the 6th year of Kenchou, in the reign of Emperor Go-Fukaku. Thereafter, Gakushin confined himself in a mountain temple at Koyasan, sometimes visiting the capital, Kyoto. Years passed, and he founded a Buddhist temple named Saihoji in the province of Kishu, where he established his permanent abode. Because of his great virtue, Gakushin became known by the title Daizenji, Great Master of Zen, and the number of his disciples increased day by day. Among his numerous students, there was one called Koochie-coo. The more earnest he became in his devotion to Zen Buddhism, the more ardent was his admiration for his master. Gakushin also took a more kindly interest in him than in other students. One day, Gakushin told Koochie-coo, "When I was studying in the country of Song, I was instructed in the Kyotaku, and I perform on it well even today. I would like to initiate you in this flute, in the hope that, as my successor, you will pass this art on to posterity." Koochie-coo, dancing for joy and expressing his gratitude, received instruction in this music and attained proficiency in the instrument. He took delight in playing it every day, untiringly. There were 4 more students, Kokusaku, Rise, Hofu, and Sojo, who also learned this flute well. They were known to the world under the collective Shikoji, 4 devoted men. Later, having a desire to practice itinerancy, Koochie-coo asked the master for permission to take his leave. He wished to play this flute in the streets and at every gate, and to let all the world know this exquisite music. Gakushin said, "Well, what a fine ambition." Koochie-coo departed from Kishu immediately, and before long arrived in the shrine of Kokuzo-do at the top of Mount Asamagatake in the province of Seishu. Having confined himself in the shrine, Koochie-coo concentrated strenuously on his devotions, praying deep into the night. When he was about to fall asleep, he had a vivid, inspired dream. Koochie-coo was pulling a punt, alone on the sea, admiring the full moon. Suddenly, a dense fog covered everything, and the moonlight, too, grew dim and dark. Through the fog, he heard the sound of a flute, desolate and sonorous. The beauty of the sound was beyond description. Shortly the sound ceased. The fog got thicker and thicker and became a dense mass from which the wonderful sound of the flute emerged again. Koochie-coo had never heard such an exquisite sound. In his dream, he was deeply inspired and wished to imitate the sound with his Kyotaku. Then suddenly he awakened from the dream and found no trace of the mass of fog or the punt and pole, but the sound of the flute still lingered in his ears. Koochie-coo thought it was very wondrous. Tuning his Kyotaku, he tried to imitate it with the 2 strains of music in his dream. Eventually, he succeeded in reproducing the sound on his flute. He immediately returned to Kishu and told Gakushin, his master, about the dream and the music he learned from it. Then Koochie-coo asked the master to name these 2 pieces. The master said, "That must be a gift from the Buddha. What you heard first shall be called Mukaiji, flute in the foggy sea. And what you heard next shall be named Kokuji, flute in the empty sky." Thenceforth, as he went to and fro on the road, Kikuchi played Kyotaku, the piece which he had learned first, and then, when he was requested to perform something novel, he played the 2 newly acquired pieces. Monks in later ages have become ignorant of this matter and play the latter 2 pieces indiscriminately. They always take Kyotaku for the name of the musical piece and never consider it to be a name of the instrument as well. Furthermore, confused by the 2 similar bells, taku and rei, they have turned the name into kyōrei, Thus, the name has lost its original significance. Besides, every one of these monks has made up something novel. There are thousands of tunes and tens of thousands of techniques, and everyone plays the flute at his own pleasure. It is deplorable that the initial intention of Choukaku has vanished completely. In the concluding years of his life, Kichiku lived in the east of Kyoto and occasionally went about in the capital city. Eventually, he taught this music to Rinzai. This heritage was handed down from Rinzai to Gihaku, from Gihaku to Rinmei, from Rinmei to Kyofu, and from Kyofu to Kyomu. Kyomu is identical with Kusunoki Masakatsu, who was descendant from the Emperor Bitatsu. The southern dynasty was at a low ebb, and all its adherents were doomed. No matter how ardent his chivalrous spirit, no matter how brave his will, Kusunoki realized what the times had wrought, and shut himself up in Yamato, instead of raising an army in vain. One day he left in secret for Goshu. There he met Kyofu, from whom he learned the tradition of the Kyotaku. Kyomu did not take to tonsure or wear canonical dress. He wore everyday, unpatterned clothes. He hung a kara from his neck, carried a beino, and covered his face with a dome-shaped basket hat. Rambling about castle towns, he sounded the Kyotaku from door to door. For a long trip, he braced himself with a shukin over his clothes and wore a pair of gaiters and straw sandals. With a large wrapping cloth of 5 feet square, he covered the fukusu, stretched it with a piece of board called kenkonbari, and tied it all up in the middle with a rope called nakayui. Packing all the needs for his journey in the fukusu, he wrapped it up with a cloth and carried it on his back. Kyomu was dressed this way when he met Kyufu, who asked suspiciously about his unusual appearance. "Hey, what a crazy-looking friend. May I ask you why you are so oddly dressed?" Kyomu responded, "Once, Fuke, the late great Zen master, wandered about ringing the taku in towns, like a possessed man. I would like to emulate his virtue. In addition," Kyomu continued, "I have made a new ordinance. The basket hat is to be called tengai. It shall be irreverent for a man engaged in these religious austerities to take off the basket hat. His face must be covered with it when he meets others. The idea is to assume a life of seclusion even in the town. When a fellow priest of this sect dies, he must be seated on the fukusu, covered with a large piece of cloth, tied with a rope, nakayui, and buried. His tombstone is to be made of a board called kenkonbari. The Kyotaku will be performed at the funeral service. This ritual will be the single highest wish for a priest dying in his itineracy. What do you think about this ordinance?" Kyofu was highly impressed by Kyomu's idea and said, "It is quite reasonable and sensible." Then Kyofu took his leave. Thereafter, Kyomu made a tour around the 5 home provinces and the 7 districts of Japan, playing the Kyotaku. When people inquired, "Who and what are you?" he would answer, "I am a monk called Kyomu." Hence the name Komuso came to be used to designate monks of this sect. The number of disciples modeling themselves upon Kyomu increased in various provinces. Some eccentric fellows wore an iron chain around the head, visors, and a long sword or a dagger. Returning to Goshu, Kyomu resided for a while in the neighborhood of Shiga and passed on the tradition of the Kyotaku to a disciple named Gido. Gido handed it down to Jito. Passing through 8 generations, from Jito, the tradition reached Chirai, the 8 monks of the 8 generations. Jito, Kasho, Kurai, Jiku, Echu, Ichimoku, Fumyo, and Chirai. By that time, the name Kyotaku had been forgotten. Only the name Kyore, as the title of a musical piece, was known. In both China and Japan, the flute has commonly been called shakuhachi. Nobody knows who gave it that name. Chirai taught the tradition to present writer Tanwo, who handed it down to Mufu, who Mufu later studied the flute with other teachers and played in innumerable styles. This is the Kyotaku Denki.